Welcome to the Wealth Matters podcast, where investors come together to better understand how to build passive cash flow and create generational wealth without all the confusing mumbo-jumbo. Here's your host and co-author of Amazon #1 bestseller, Alpesh Parmar.
Welcome to Wealth Matters podcast. I am going to talk to Mr. John Rickgarn today. John and I have been emailing each other for a while, so I feel like I have known him for quite a while by this time. We always discuss different real estate ideas, agriculture investments, and I love what he's doing. He calls himself as an investor, realtor, and educator. He actually launched his new business in 2020. It's called Wealth and Freedom Nexus. He launched it to educate people about real estate investment. So welcome, John.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Tell us something interesting or funny about yourself.
Interesting about myself. Well, since a lot of people probably haven't heard the last name Rickgarn before, there's actually two people in the entire world with that last name. So that's probably the most interesting thing I can think of right now.
Oh, yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because if you search Alpesh Parmar, there will be a ton of people who will show up. Not even just the last name.
Yeah, it's just my great-grandfather immigrated from Germany, had an only child. 3 kids, one never had kids. My uncle had a daughter. My dad had me. I was an only child, and just kind of went from there. But
that's interesting. So let's talk about real estate. What was your very first real estate investment, and how did it work out?
First real estate investment was actually a fourplex. I kind of joke with a lot of my friends that, most people start with a single family home, then go to a duplex and maybe build up to a fourplex. And we just decided to do everything in reverse, start with the fourplex first. I had spent probably a year and a half researching, reading books, listening to podcasts, learning as much as I could about real estate, what made a good investment. Obviously the 1% rule was definitely trying to hit, $100,000 property should rent for $1,000 or so forth.
Right.
And, wanted newer construction, didn't want to deal with Section 8. So as the list of criteria built up, it was fewer and fewer properties that kind of met that criteria. And my wife even said you're never going to find that. And it was, I believe, June of 2016, it just popped on the market. It was a fourplex, newer construction, hit the 1% rule. Our property management company that we were talking to, they would manage it. So everything just clicked into place. And then it was just a matter of, okay, well, how the heck do we finance this thing? And, fourplex is obviously more expensive than a single family home. Through, talking to my financial advisor and some research, learned you can take your contributions out of a Roth IRA tax-free.
Yes, after 5 years.
Yep. Yeah. So, because I had a Roth IRA since I was 19, and
That's awesome.
Work hard, save money, save for retirement, blah blah blah. So, I had a pretty sizable chunk in my Roth IRA, and decided to pull out my contributions, and that was the down payment. Even though my internal Susie Ortman, Dave Ramsey was screaming, "Do not touch your retirement account. Do not."
No, but that's amazing that you did. So, and sorry to interrupt, but a couple of things I always say: I hate retirement accounts, right? But the one retirement account I like, if you really have to do it, then that's Roth IRA or Roth 401k.
Yeah,
because it's on steroids. It's because you pay the taxes once and you never pay tax. Right. and that's what I want. I would like to pay tax on the seed, not on the entire tree. Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing and the second decision you made was amazing, that you pull out that contribution. Your money is already growing. You already pay tax on it. You still have that account. You didn't pull out everything and paid penalty. You just pulled out the contribution.
Right.
So that's another great thing you did. I think, you don't have to worry about Susie Orman or any of those. Dave Ramsey. So how did it work out then?
Overall, really well. The ironic part is the property was vacant when we bought it. There actually wasn't any tenants, so we started, no cash flow. But it was nice that we could kind of start fresh, get new tenants in. Obviously, could do some updates right away without, bothering any of the tenants. Probably the biggest hiccup I ran into a couple of years later was homestead exclusions. I learned that if you buy a property that was formerly occupied by an owner occupant, then it goes to a non-owner occupied home, then you lose a large tax break. So one year the taxes jumped up about $850, even though the value of the property hadn't changed at all.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a sticker shock. So
Yeah. So let's talk about, because you mentioned you retired. When exactly did you retire?
Well, if you count retiring as leaving my corporate job, yeah, it was September of 2019 when I had spent 12 years at my previous sales job, and it was just at that point it was like, I've had enough, and I can't keep doing this the rest of my life.
That's awesome. So, congrats on getting out of that rat race, right? Because now you got working for yourself, and you are doing what you really enjoy. So,
Mm-hmm.
when did you put that plan in place, right? You retired in September of 2019. I don't think you decided in August that you are going
No.
to retire next month, right?
No, not at all. Interesting. Several years ago, I kind of had my, how I want to put it, like kind of an epiphany, if you will. It was November of 2014. My wife was actually, she went back to get her doctorate. She had just left a high paying job that she wasn't happy with either. And I was sitting at the time like, all right, we're down to one income, got to, sell more, make some more commissions.
Right.
And just out of the blue, I don't know what it was. It just hit me. I thought, I'm 31 years old. If I were to essentially relive my entire life again, I still would not be at the arbitrary retirement age of 65. And that would be, after working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, every single week for 31 more years. And then I kind of had a second epiphany, and I realized, well, what if I don't even make it to age 65? Quick background story, on my life. Both my parents passed away of cancer in their 50s. My dad when I was 11, my mom when I was 16. And I mean, you can talk of, well, statistically, you're going to live to 70, 75, 80, whatever the magic number is. It's like, well, everything's a statistic until something happens to you. So I kind of looked at it, well, my parents did everything, quote, right, saved, worked hard, saved for retirement, and they never got to enjoy retirement. So kind of took a step back and figured there has to be a better way. Maybe there's some way to get paid now and in retirement, not just wait till some arbitrary day 30, 40 years into the future.
That's great. So then did you put a plan in place? Like what kind of process you had in mind that, okay, this is when, if I hit this number or this many number of properties, I will retire? Or did you have any, what kind of stepping stones?
Yeah, definitely stepping stones. I know everyone kind of picks like an arbitrary, $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month or whatever their, magic number is. I actually took it a little bit more broken down approach. So I actually sat down, wrote out all of our monthly recurring bills. So your car insurance, utilities, the bills that go month to month that don't really change much. And then I kind of piecemealed it together of factoring in one bill, if you will, and have that one bill paid for via a passive income stream. So the first one started kind of small with a crowdfunding site called Realty Mogul. Then those monthly distributions that started paying our Netflix bills. So, okay, 13, 14 bucks a month isn't, earth shattering for anyone, but okay, there's one bill that's paid for by passive income. And then it just kind of built on from there. Like, okay, well, this property pays for our utilities and our life insurance. This property pays for our state farm bill. This property pays for our natural gas bill. And then just kind of built on it incrementally from there.
That's great. So what you described, even though it's Netflix or not, but pretty much you exactly knew that, okay, this investment will cover this expense, right? And
Hmm.
so it's not an arbitrary number. Like I always think, oh yeah, 20 grand a month, I'm done. But
Yeah.
you actually had, you were able to tie them together, and that's amazing. Uh, so at what point, let's say, how many investments or how many properties, at what point you were able to then retire?
Yeah, I'd started working on a number of different income streams, everything from, yeah, exited a lot out of the stock market, but I had some dividend paying stocks, but several crowdfunding sites. Lending Club was a big investment I had at one point. Of course, fortunately, that's kind of gone by the wayside now.
Hey,
But
so sorry to interrupt, but Lending Club, I just recorded a video and
oh,
posted
really?
on Instagram and LinkedIn
Okay,
how
I'll
it did
check that
not
out.
do anything for me for 4 years. And you must check it out and comment what you think. But for
Okay, I'll
four
do that.
years, I put my IRA money of $10,000. After 4 years, it was
Oh, geez.
$10,887, right? So I
Oh,
pull it
wow.
out. So of course you can watch the video, but
Okay.
I pull it out and put it in Bitcoin IRA in February of 2020. You know the value of
Nice.
that account is right now 45,000. I put all the screenshots.
Nice.
I've showed everyone. I
Yeah.
shared my screens. So, and I compared, showed both Lending Club and Bitcoin IRA side by side.
Wow.
But that's my story. So I'm glad that what you are doing, that's exactly what I tried. I tried to create a lot of different income streams. So I'm
Hmm.
not relying on just one type of income as well. Even though
Right.
you and I love real estate like crazy, but I still don't want to have real estate for 80% of my portfolio. It's
Right.
still 50%, and I'm okay with that because it's long term. But I still
Hmm.
want different income streams, and that's why I had tried out. I have tried out so many things, and
Yeah.
that's going to be my next segment of my podcast, where I'm going to talk about every Monday. I'll release a new episode, 10 minutes worth, where I'm going to talk about my experiments, if they
Okay.
worked or not.
Yep.
so,
Yeah.
so,
I've
so
had
sorry
plenty
to
of
interrupt.
experiments over the years too.
And a lot of them don't work, but the ones which work, I make sure they are really successful.
Right. Yep.
Right. That's the key. That people say, "Oh, you lose money," and I admit that I have lost a lot of money
Hmm.
on a lot of investments, but the investments which worked, they covered all the losses plus a
Right.
lot more.
Yep. Yeah. It got to be diversified. Yeah. You're going to lose money, but it matters, how much do you make when you win and how much do you lose when you lose? So,
Right, right. Hey, so when we were talking, you mentioned about quit deferring your life. What do you mean by that?
well, kind of back to my, story with my parents. I mean, I still remember at a young age. I don't remember them all, but I've technically visited all lower 48 states by the time I was
Wow.
10 years old. Keep
Wow.
in mind, a lot of them I was, one, two, three, so I don't
Right.
remember a lot of
But that
them.
shows that they loved traveling.
Right. And we had talked about, going to Hawaii, going to Alaska, because those are the last two states we hadn't seen. And then of course it was 92 that my dad got diagnosed with cancer. Then obviously, those travel aspirations never happened. But then, too, just with growing up, I think so much of society we've been, I guess, brainwashed, for lack of a better term, of, save for retirement, put as much money in your retirement as you possibly can. And I mean, you're essentially deferring your life. You're putting all that money away for some arbitrary, age 62, 65, 67, some, time frame 30, 40 years out into the future that isn't necessarily guaranteed. And I think a lot of our society is we've tried to defer so much of our life and defer, so many adventures or experiences to a later part in life that, at the end of the day, we're not guaranteed that we're going to have that later day.
Right. No, that's great point, right? So either you may not be there to enjoy, or you may not be in a good health to enjoy. Maybe
Yeah.
you are in wheelchair, right? Maybe
Yeah.
we don't know, right? What could happen? Maybe we are not. Yeah, we have other health issues,
Hmm.
right? So it's like start enjoying your life right now. That's what you mean, right?
Right. Well,
Don't
and
wait.
Yep. And like I said, we've just been taught from an early age of, build up these retirement accounts, and this retirement account's going to give you this income stream when you retire.
Right.
And I just kind of took a step back, and it's like, well, what if I had an investment that paid me now and in retirement, month in, month out, year after year, whether it's a real estate investing or a real estate investment or a, crowdfunding platform. I mean, why not have that money come now, 10 years from now, and just keep building on that versus just wait till the future.
Right. Yeah. Cryptocurrencies, there are so many ways for you to invest as well as diversify. And even though you and I don't do a lot of stocks, but yeah, stocks, if you pick right stocks, I
Mhm.
always, I personally don't invest in stocks, but I do have my 401k, which is being managed by a fund manager, and they take care, they play with stocks only, right? So and that's
Mhm.
why I'm able to keep my portfolio, let's say even my 10% of my portfolio is in stocks, right? Even though I don't do anything with stocks. So
Right.
so you got to diversify and especially focus a lot more on cash flowing assets, right? So that can cover your day-to-day expenses.
Yeah, and even with real estate investing, and there's a lot of platforms, programs, real estate gurus, if you will, that talk about wholesaling properties or flipping properties. And I was just really interested more in cash flow, and
Right.
everyone's like, oh, we got to invest in Dallas Fort Worth or Jacksonville or some really hot and upcoming market. Colorado, take your pick. It's like, well, I prefer the boring markets that provide
Right.
cash
Right.
flow, day in and day out. If it appreciates, great, but I'm not in it for the appreciation. I'm in it for the cash flow.
Yeah, especially if those markets are already in news, then yeah, you are already late.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the thing. But no, that's awesome. Well, how you did it. So another question I have, how can people, right? So, because there are a lot of syndication opportunities, and I
Mhm.
also raise capital, I have syndication. I invest in other syndications too for passive income. Plus, I have my active real estate as well. But
Mhm.
there are some people who are just starting out. How can people, especially non accredited investors, and let me remind my listeners, accredited investors means someone who is making 200,000 per year if they're filing single. If they're filing
Mhm.
jointly, has to have they have to make 300,000 per year in last 2 years, or you got to have $1 million net worth, right? So a lot of the time, those opportunities, a lot of people cannot participate in, right? So
Mhm.
let's talk about those people,
Sure.
non-accredited investors, right?
Yep. And yeah, and actually just one note too, it's $1 million less the value of your primary home.
Yes, that's
And
key.
it's the total value, it's not your equity. I was falsely told that at one point. It's like, well, if you have a $200,000 home and you got a $160,000 mortgage, you still got to subtract $200,000 from your net worth to see if you pass that litmus test for accreditation. They could care less what your equity balance is. So yeah, it's a kind of a hard threshold to pass
Right,
on.
correct. And I
So
agree.
but
Because
yeah, I think yeah, the biggest thing is just I started back late 2014 to 2015. My kind of education medium was podcast. My job, I was on the road a lot. Wasn't uncommon to drive 150, 250 miles a day. So, plug in my phone, queue up a couple podcasts for the day, would knock out 4, 5, 6, 8 in a day, and really just kind of absorbed as much information as I could. And you kind of hear about this one podcast, and then it mentions this website, then this website mentions this book, and this book mentions this program, this program mentions someone on LinkedIn to reach out to, and just kind of expands from there. And I think the education really comes first of what do you really want to get out of your investments or out of your life. And sometimes even just start small, like you said, buying $100 worth of stock that pays dividends, is a way to start small. Many, platforms from Concrete to AHP servicing to Lending Club, obviously I mentioned before, prosper.com. There's several platforms. I even have listed on my website that you can, that you don't have to be accredited and can start in that.
I have
So,
story about Prosper too, because that was the same month I wanted to compare Prosper and Lending
Oh,
Club
yeah.
side by side. So I invested in both. Yeah, and it didn't go down well. But AHP, my investment in AHP is doing good. So I
Yep.
always want to call out the investments which
Mhm.
worked and which did not, right?
Yeah, I've been very happy with their platform.
Yeah.
I've been
George
with
is
them
good.
4 years.
Yeah, I have interviewed George a couple of times on the podcast. Actually, his second episode, should
Okay.
be airing in a month, I would say. Or
Okay.
yeah. So
Cool.
yeah, it's been good. So let's talk about, because yes, you showed the path, how you started, what you did. What mistakes did you make?
I didn't make any mistakes. No.
Yeah, no, you are awesome. You're like
Exactly.
all the other gurus.
Yeah. Probably I kind of mentioned before with our fourplex that purchase, did all the analysis, factored in reserves. The biggest thing I didn't plan on was losing the homestead exclusion. The previous owner of the fourplex lived in it and rented out the other 3 units. Well, we purchased, then it became a non-owner occupied, and bit of a tax jump with that loss. So bit of a hit to the cash flow for about a year until we could, raise the rents a little bit to make up for the difference. Probably with in the stock world in 2018, I was just certain we were bound and determined to get a correction.
Yeah.
So
almost everyone was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, we got to have a, correction. And I think there's an old saying, the market can remain, how was it? The market can be irrational longer than you can be solvent.
Right.
So I kept doubling down on inverse ETFs in my Roth 401k, just figured, it's going to turn, it's going to have a correction. Well, in my 401k, I couldn't even do like option strategies to, make extra income or protect myself. So it was just kind of, kept doubling down. And then finally I just said, all right, enough of this, just cashed out everything and realized from about 8 years of investing, it's like, well, for 8 years now I have no gains and I'm actually below my cost base.
Right, exactly. That's my problem with stocks. Right. So the amount of work you put in, I keep telling all my friends, because when I talk about real estate or cryptos and all other investments, they compare. They're like, oh yeah, I'm making 10, 20% a year. Last year was amazing, right? And I'm like, there is one thing, it's called ROI, return on investment. For me, the second thing is very important, return on time, ROT.
Yep.
The amount of time we put in researching and watching the market, we don't realize. Opening the phone every hour, every 30 minutes. And then I had another screen ongoing. This was 2015 and 16 when I was doing options and futures. I had one screen just running the tickers, right? Nothing else, one monitor. I'm constantly watching, and the amount of time I had wasted and the emotional drama which went with it. The day I made money, maybe market is up or down, doesn't matter, because I was doing both sides, right? As you were doing university, I was happy. The day I was losing money, I was sad, right? So that showed in my relationship with my kids and everything. And I said, this is not working out.
Right.
And after all of doing all that for 10 years, I just looked at my 10 years number from 2010 to 2020, and my return is 5.5%.
Yeah. And you factor in inflation, and you probably had
and
zero,
the taxes. That's another thing why I love real estate. That's why, it's for all of my investments, they have to have 2 things: cash flow and tax benefits.
Yeah.
If they have either, that's my speculative money. I do have speculative money, like which goes to crypto and all, but my real investments, they have to have both of this aspect. And that's why you can't go wrong with real estate.
No.
No. So this is great. Anything else you could think of, like the mistakes you have made, and if you had to redo, what would you do?
Well, if I had a time machine, I'd invest in Dallas Fort Worth maybe in about 2010. But yeah, I don't know. I don't
and
think
Austin, Texas.
Yeah. I think with any transaction and with any investment, really, at the end of the day, you either learn something or you earn money. And I think as long as you get one of those things and you can benefit from that going forward, I think that's probably the best benefit you can have. I mean, we're all going to make mistakes. I mean, no one bats 100. I mean, what Barry Bonds struck out, 2/3 of the time, yet he's regarded as one of the greatest in baseball.
All right, no, that's awesome. Let's take a quick break, and after the break, we'll go through the same 5 questions I ask every guest.
All right.
You're listening to the Wealth Matters Podcast. The Wealth Matters Podcast. For more info about what we do, check us out at wealthmatters.com. It's wealth, WEALTH, matters, MATRS.com.
Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. John's already threw some golden nuggets, and I like one of his words where he says, every investment will have either learn or earn feature, right? And you can't be just earning all the time. Sometimes you are going to get an educational seminar out of that investment.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, it's going to happen.
Exactly. So that's awesome. Are you ready for fire round?
I guess so. Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. Would you be changing any business or investment strategy after this pandemic is over?
Pretty much have been kind of slowing down, and obviously I want to continue to, keep acquiring more real estate, but I'm not going to, throw money after a dumb deal and just to buy it. I still want it to cash flow. I still want it to make sense. And if that means waiting an additional 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, so be it. Knock on wood, I have not been impacted by the eviction moratoriums, but I've been pretty cross fingers, knock on wood, been pretty diligent about just, building up the reserves and credit lines just to, have as a plan B in case something did happen, whether it's, extended vacancies or bigger maintenance items. So
that's great. Favorite real estate or finance or business book?
Well, most of your listeners probably know of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I've given out like 30 copies of those. Probably my second favorite one is one by David McKnight, The Power of Zero. Really gets into tax-free investing and kind of gives a sober picture of the financial state of the United States. And kind of like you said earlier, I'd rather just pay the tax now and be done with it versus defer all my savings to a unknown point in time and
I don't know
tax rate.
I don't know if the tax bracket would be more than what I have right now, and I'm hoping that I'll be making more money than what I'm making right now. Right? Of course, why would you think that I'll retire poor or you would want to retire poor?
Yeah, you only save money if you make less money in retirement. It's like, well, why don't you, you should make more money, not make less money.
Exactly. That's awesome. So any tool or website you recommend other than your website and my website?
Yeah, shameless plug, wealthandfreedomnexus.com. Otherwise, kind of back to the previous book, Power of Zero, powerofzero.com. David McKnight actually did a documentary film. I think it's about an hour and a half long, but it's really dives deep into the financial instability, for lack of a better term, of the United States government and how probably everyone should really take steps so they don't get hit by a ticking time bomb when it comes to taking money out of their retirement accounts.
So I got to read the book. I had already bought it. It's on my Kindle for, I would say, 4 or 5 months now. So I got to read it now.
I got you beat. I got one book that's been out there for 18 months. So.
Don't even get me started. I have about 46 books or 47 books.
Okay, yeah, I beat there.
Yeah, I got too many. I'm just, I'm so behind.
Yeah.
When I was working, actually not working, but when I was not home all the time, I was finishing a lot more books.
Right.
Now that it's all the time at home and not even commuting or not even flying anywhere.
Yeah.
So I can't even listen. So it's been even harder.
Right.
So any advice for beginner investors?
I think the biggest thing, one, just sit down and really ask yourself, what is it you want to achieve? Is it financial freedom? Do you want to leave your job? Do you want to, create a big, net worth? Really concentrate on what you want first, and then educate yourself as much as you can. Whether that's education on real estate investing, stocks, cryptocurrency, agriculture investing. I mean, I think too many people are kind of, going after the shiny object and, piling money into the next GameStop or some ridiculous investment that, if you're the first one in, you're going to do great. If you're the second one in, you're probably going to lose everything. So I think education is the biggest thing that I can recommend to anyone starting off. And initially it's kind of the unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. And as you learn more and become more experienced, then you slowly get to learn more and just become more well-rounded as an investor.
That's awesome. How do you give back?
Personally, I just I do a lot of financial education. I've done obviously my website, my blog. I also do community ed classes here in Marshall on financial literacy. On a personal level, with my background, I've volunteered with for a child's grief camp called Camp Love's Embrace.
Nice.
Since 2003 when it first opened up. Essentially, it's a grief camp for children that have lost a parent or loved one at a young age. And just like I experienced when I was young, not many 8-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds have experienced a loss of a parent. So they're kind of, little out of sorts amongst their peers, where if they can come to a weekend camp and they're surrounded by other children that have had similar losses, they can open up more and are amongst other kids that know what they're feeling.
Oh, this is great. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate, because we do need to take care of these kids, right? So
Yes.
This is awesome. How can my listeners reach out to you?
Well, as I mentioned, there's only 2 Rickgarns in the world, so not too hard to find on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. My website, wealthandfreedomnexus.com. Otherwise, they can email me at john@wealthandfreedomnexus.com as well. I love networking. I love chatting about real estate and investing, and kind of giving my 2 cents opinions on what other people want to achieve in their investment goals.
Thank you so much for your time, John, today. I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to the Wealth Matters podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes so others can enjoy the show too. Have a great week and happy investing.